December 19, 2013, Copenhagen, Denmark. An internal auditor at Danske Bank receives an email. It's marked confidential, sent by a colleague in the bank's Estonian branch. The email contains a spreadsheet, transaction records, customer accounts, dates, amounts. The auditor opens it and freezes. These numbers don't make sense. Billions of dollars flowing through a tiny Baltic branch. Customers from Russia, Azerbaijan, Moldova. Accounts that show no legitimate business purpose. Transactions structured to avoid detection. According to what the auditor would later tell Danish authorities, he realized immediately what he was looking at. Money, laundering, on a scale he couldn't comprehend. The email, it was never supposed to reach him. The sender hit reply all instead of reply. A simple mistake, a wrong button. That mistake would expose $3.8 billion in illicit funds, bring down executives, force a bank CEO to resign, trigger investigations across 9 countries, and reveal the largest money laundering operation in European banking history. This is the story of how one accidental email unraveled everything. Before we dive into the spreadsheet that brought down a multi-billion-dollar empire, make sure you're subscribed to Torven Report. We investigate the elite and the systems they use to stay hidden. You don't want to miss our next deep dive. Danske Bank, Denmark's largest financial institution, founded in 1871, over 150 years of history. Reputation for stability, trust, Nordic banking values. By 2013, according to company reports, Danske operated in 15 countries, 5 million customers, total assets exceeding 600 billion euros. The bank had expanded into the Baltic states after the Soviet Union collapsed. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. New markets, new opportunities. The Estonian branch opened in 2007, located in Tallinn. Small operation, fewer than 200 employees. According to internal bank documents later obtained by investigators, the Estonian branch was classified as low risk, small deposits, limited international exposure, standard retail banking. But according to what regulators would discover, that classification was catastrophically wrong. The Estonian branch had a unique feature, a non-resident portfolio. This meant they served customers who didn't live in Estonia, foreign nationals, mostly from Russia and former Soviet states, business owners, wealthy individuals, people who wanted banking services in the European Union, but didn't want to bank in their home countries. According to Baltic banking practice, this was common. Estonia was in the EU, used the euro, had decent banking privacy laws. Russian oligarchs and business people liked that combination. Danske's Estonian branch actively recruited these customers. According to marketing materials presented in later court proceedings, they advertised in Russia. They attended business conferences in Moscow. They promised fast account opening, minimal documentation requirements, efficient international transfers. The customers came. By 2013, according to bank records, the non-resident portfolio had approximately 15,000 accounts. These accounts were incredibly active. According to transaction data analyzed by forensic accountants, some accounts processed millions of dollars monthly. Some had hundreds of transactions per day. Wire transfers in, wire transfers out, constantly moving money. The Estonian branch's transaction volume exceeded many of Danske's larger branches in wealthier countries. A tiny office in Tallinn, processing more money than branches in London or Paris. That should have triggered questions. It didn't. The structure of the operation, as investigators would later determine, was designed for one purpose: moving dirty money into the clean financial system. Here's how it worked. Step 1. A customer, let's say a Russian businessman, opens an account at Danske Estonia. According to account opening records, documentation requirements were minimal, sometimes just a passport copy, business registration papers that were never verified, beneficial ownership information that was incomplete or false. Step 2. money enters the account. According to transaction records, it typically came from shell companies, entities registered in places like the British Virgin Islands, Seychelles, Panama, companies with no employees, no offices, no legitimate business operations. Step 3. The money sits in the Danske account, briefly, sometimes hours, sometimes days. Then it moves. According to wire transfer data, funds would be sent to multiple other accounts, different banks, different countries. The transactions were structured to stay below reporting thresholds, split into smaller amounts, sent to different destinations. Step 4. The money, now several steps removed from its origin, enters the legitimate economy. Real estate purchases, luxury goods, business investments. The dirty money is now clean. And Danske Bank, according to prosecutors, facilitated every step. The scale was staggering. According to investigation reports compiled by Danish authorities, between 2007 and 2015, approximately 200 billion euros flowed through Danske Estonia's non-resident accounts. 200 billion euros. That's roughly 220 billion US dollars at average exchange rates during that period. Of that, according to law enforcement estimates, at least $15 billion was highly suspicious, likely proceeds of crime, tax evasion, corruption, organized crime, and at least 3.8 billion was confirmed dirty money, linked to specific criminal investigations, Russian organized crime, Azerbaijani corruption schemes, Ukrainian embezzlement cases, all of it flowing through a small branch in Estonia. But the volume alone wasn't the only red flag. According to compliance officer testimony in later legal proceedings, the transactions showed obvious signs of money laundering. Round numbers, transfers of exactly $1 million, or 500,000 euros. Legitimate businesses don't transact in such neat amounts. Lack of economic purpose. Money would enter an account from one shell company and leave to another shell company, with no goods or services exchanged, no invoices, no contracts, just money movement. Rapid turnover, accounts that received 10 million and sent 10 million out in the same week. No accumulation, no business activity, just a pass-through. Inconsistent customer profiles, a construction company in Moldova, receiving funds from a pharmaceutical distributor in Cyprus, and sending money to a mining operation in Kazakhstan. No logical connection. Geographic risk patterns, money flowing from high-risk jurisdictions, Russia, Azerbaijan, Moldova, through Estonia, to destinations in Western Europe or offshore tax havens. According to anti-money laundering standards published by international banking regulators, any one of these patterns should trigger enhanced scrutiny. Danske Estonia transactions showed all of them, simultaneously, for years. Compliance officers at the Estonian branch knew something was wrong. According to internal emails obtained during investigations, staff raised concerns as early as 2008. One compliance officer wrote, according to court exhibits, "These accounts don't pass the smell test, we need to close them." Another email, and from 2010, stated, "We are being used to launder money. This is obvious." According to testimony, these warnings were sent to regional management, then to headquarters in Copenhagen. The response? Do more due diligence, get better documentation, but keep the accounts open. According to internal bank communications, there was a simple reason: profit. The Estonian non-resident portfolio generated approximately 1 billion euros in annual revenue for Danske Bank during its peak years. Fees from wire transfers, foreign exchange spreads, account maintenance charges, 1 billion euros, from a small branch in a country with a population of just over 1 million. That money funded bonuses, shareholder dividends, executive compensation. Think about that for a second. 1 billion euros in pure profit versus the law. If you were a CEO, would you close the accounts and lose the money, or keep the lights on and hope nobody notices? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. According to what prosecutors would later allege, Closing the accounts meant losing the revenue, so the accounts stayed open, which brings us back to December 19th, 2013, the email. According to what became public in later legal filings, a compliance officer in the Estonian branch prepared a report. An internal analysis, risk assessment of certain high-volume accounts. The report was damning. According to the document, it identified specific accounts that showed clear money laundering indicators. It recommended immediate closure. It warned that continuing to serve these customers exposed the bank to regulatory action and criminal liability. The officer intended to send this report to his immediate supervisor, one person. Instead, he hit Reply All. The email and the attached spreadsheet went to the entire compliance department, regional managers, headquarters staff in Copenhagen, over 40 people, including Howard Wilkinson. Wilkinson was a British banker, worked in Danske's international division, based in Copenhagen. According to his later testimony, he had no previous knowledge of the Estonian branch's issues. He opened the email, read the report, examined the spreadsheet. According to what he told investigators, his first reaction was disbelief. These numbers couldn't be real. He spent the next week digging deeper. According to his account, he requested additional documents, transaction histories, account opening files, customer due diligence records. What he found horrified him. Shell companies with no legitimate business, beneficial owners who were convicted criminals, transactions that matched patterns in known money laundering schemes. And according to his analysis, nobody at senior levels was stopping it. They knew, and they did nothing. Wilkinson faced a choice. According to his testimony in later court proceedings, he went to his supervisors first, reported what he'd found, expected immediate action. The response was muted. According to what he later told authorities, he was told the Estonian situation was being handled, that compliance was working on it, that he should focus on his own responsibilities. But Wilkinson kept digging. According to documents he compiled, he identified over 15,000 suspicious accounts. He traced billions in questionable transactions. He found evidence that senior executives had been warned repeatedly and chose to ignore those warnings. In February 2014, according to his testimony, Wilkinson escalated his concerns to the bank's board of directors. Their response, according to his account, was to launch an internal investigation. That investigation took 4 years. During that time, according to transaction data, the suspicious accounts remained open. The money kept flowing. Billions more moved through the system. Wilkinson grew frustrated. In 2018, according to public records, Wilkinson made a decision. If the bank wouldn't act, regulators needed to know. He contacted the Danish Financial Supervisory Authority, provided documentation, transaction records, internal emails, his analysis. According to regulatory filings, the Danish FSA launched a formal investigation in April 2018. Within months, the story broke publicly. Danish media, citing sources familiar with the investigation, reported that Danske Bank had processed billions in suspicious Russian money through its Estonian branch. The bank's stock plummeted 20% in a single day. By September 2018, according to company announcements, Danske Bank's CEO Thomas Borgen resigned. The chairman of the board followed. The bank's reputation shattered. The investigation spread. Denmark, Estonia, the United States, France, the United Kingdom, 9 countries launched parallel probes. The U.S. Department of Justice got involved because, according to prosecutors, some of the transactions moved through correspondent banks in New York. That meant U.S. jurisdiction. That meant potential criminal charges. In 2022, according to DOJ announcements, Danske Bank pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bank fraud. The bank agreed to pay over $2 billion in penalties to U.S. and Danish authorities. According to the plea agreement, Danske admitted that its Estonian branch had been used to launder criminal proceeds. that senior executives had been aware, that the bank failed to implement adequate anti-money laundering controls despite repeated warnings. Individual prosecutions followed. According to court records, several executives faced criminal charges in Estonia and Denmark, charges including money laundering facilitation, fraud, violation of banking regulations. As of this investigation's publication, those cases remain ongoing. The damage extended beyond Danske Bank. According to Estonian regulatory reviews, the scandal exposed systemic weaknesses in Baltic banking oversight, lack of resources, insufficient expertise, political pressure to maintain bank-friendly environments. Several other banks operating in the Baltics faced enhanced scrutiny. Some lost licenses. Others exited the markets entirely. The European Union responded with tighter anti-money laundering regulations. According to EU legislative records, new rules required better verification of beneficial ownership, enhanced monitoring of high-risk jurisdictions, stricter penalties for compliance failures. But according to financial crime experts, the fundamental problem remains. Money laundering is profitable. The incentives for banks to look the other way are powerful. Compliance costs money. Lost business costs money. Regulatory fines are often less than the profits generated. Until that calculation changes, according to anti-money laundering professionals, scandals like Danske will repeat. So what went wrong? First, according to investigation findings, governance failure. Danske's Estonian branch operated with minimal oversight from headquarters. Regional management had autonomy. Headquarters didn't ask hard questions. The structure enabled the fraud. Second, misaligned incentives. According to testimony from former employees, compliance officers who raised concerns faced pressure to maintain business relationships. Revenue goals trumped risk management. Third, inadequate technology. According to expert analysis, Danske's transaction monitoring systems were outdated. They couldn't effectively analyze the volume and complexity of transactions flowing through Estonia. Red flags went undetected by automated systems. Fourth, regulatory arbitrage. According to legal experts, Danske exploited differences in enforcement rigor across jurisdictions. Estonia's regulators had fewer resources than Danish authorities. The bank knew this and used it. Fifth, cultural factors. According to sociological analysis of the case, there was an assumption that Nordic banks were inherently trustworthy, that their reputation provided cover. Regulators gave them the benefit of the doubt. Sixth, complexity. According to the investigation, the money moved through dozens of jurisdictions. Shell companies were layered. Beneficial ownership was obscured. Following the money required resources and expertise that regulators lacked. The Danske case is not unique. According to United Nations estimates, global money laundering totals between $800 billion and $2 trillion annually. Only a tiny fraction gets detected. According to law enforcement data, less than 1% of laundered money is seized. The techniques Danske enabled remain common. Shell companies, high-volume accounts, rapid transfers through multiple jurisdictions, banks in countries with weak oversight. According to recent regulatory reports, similar schemes have been identified in Cyprus, Latvia, Malta, Luxembourg. The geography changes. The methods stay the same. What should ordinary people watch for? You're not a compliance officer. You're not investigating banks. But understanding how money laundering works matters, because these schemes fund serious crime. According to law enforcement, money laundering enables drug trafficking, human trafficking, corruption, terrorism financing. When banks look the other way, criminals operate freely. So what can you do? First, understand that your bank has obligations. According to federal law, banks must report suspicious transactions, must verify customer identities, must monitor for money laundering. If your bank asks for documentation, that's compliance, not harassment. Second, be skeptical of offshore banking that promises privacy and minimal questions. According to regulatory guidance, legitimate offshore banking exists, but banks that advertise minimal scrutiny are often catering to criminals. Third, support transparency initiatives. According to policy advocates, beneficial ownership registries, public reporting of banking violations, stronger penalties for compliance failures, these reduce money laundering. Fourth, recognize that scandals like Danske hurt everyone. According to economic analysis, money laundering distorts markets, inflates real estate prices, funds criminal enterprises that harm communities. Howard Wilkinson, the whistleblower who never intended to be one, received the 2018 International Corruption Hunters Alliance Award. According to his public statements, he didn't want to be a hero. He just wanted the bank to do the right thing. The accidental email opened his eyes. His persistence exposed the fraud. His courage triggered the investigations. $3.8 billion in dirty money. Identified, traced, stopped. Thousands of suspicious accounts. Closed. One of Europe's largest banks. Held accountable. All because someone hit reply all by mistake. Sometimes, the biggest frauds fall for the smallest reasons. A wrong email, a persistent analyst, a refusal to look away. That's how $3.8 billion in laundered money got exposed. This is Torven Report. We investigate financial crime. We expose the systems that enable fraud. We follow the money, so you understand how it moves. Money laundering doesn't happen in the shadows. It happens in plain sight, through major banks, in global financial centers, with the knowledge of executives who choose profit over compliance. The next Danske Bank is already operating. The next Howard Wilkinson might be reading emails right now. The next accidental exposure could happen tomorrow. If you want to understand how these systems work, if you believe financial crime deserves serious investigation, if you think ordinary people deserve to know how the wealthy hide dirty money, subscribe to this channel, because the banks are counting on you not asking questions. We're here to ask them anyway.